Okay, let's get into it.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
War and the correlation to the Willie Lynch letters. How does it fit? Is it just a theory, or does it truly plague our communities? This is a question that needs to be had, and this is one I believe I can answer for you if you just take the time out to watch the set of videos and pictures, things of that nature. I've taken a lot of information and gathered it here for you. Not all of it is my own. That's what makes the world so beautiful, though. We can coexist with not just, hand-to-hand conversation. We can coexist with the same understanding to help build other understandings. This is needed in our communities. This is my plight. This is the purpose behind I am not okay. Because if we admit where we don't have control, we can once gain it again. This is important, not to me, but to the youth, that they be able to carry on a voice of their own, one that is quickly being taken away from them, one that is quickly being taken from you and I. And I see that we don't understand the truth behind this. I just want to be able to give you something that you can understand. You decide what is your own truth in it all. I can't force your hand nowhere. The only thing I can do is ask you, please take this serious. Take this with an honest understanding. There's some truth here. Whether you accept it or not is all on you. Disclaimer, I am not trying to incite, build, or go against nothing or no one of any magnitude. I am only trying to put something in the hearts and the minds of the youth, to give them something to believe in, to give them something to stand on, to give them something I never had, an understanding of self and true self-power. This will come in parts. Part one was how the system was used against my kind. This one, I'm gonna show you how war of all magnitudes are used against not just my kind, but the world. Because at some point, the world has to have a reflection of itself to understand exactly what its problem is. So let's get into it.
Here we have the Willie Lynch letter. We're going to break this down real quick. Excuse me, before we move on. What the Willie Lynch letter is, the making of a slave. We're going to skim through some of this, but we got to go over some of it. Main themes in the letter: old versus young, dark skin versus light skin, male versus female, house slave versus field slave. Now, I need for one to account that a lot of people don't want to take this in consideration. That slavery from the 1500s on up didn't exist. In fact, the idea of slavery here in America, I believe, started with the Civil War. That's why we are going over this in the magnitude that we are, because I want you to see how I see it. And this is just a war effort. Now remember, it's just creating division in every way imaginable. You got to create distrust and envy, encourage competition instead of unity, right? Making slave people suspicious of each other. How does that fit today, right? You call those people Karens. Break enslaved men's sense of strength. They build your leaders, man. You don't really have people to follow. Those that you follow, 90% of them are plants. That's your political, your religious, and all. And believe me, I don't care what color you are. You are not exempt. They are not exempt. Your leaders are being controlled on every level, in every religion, in every political theater. Believe that. That's why we're getting into this. Longevity of control. Now, this is the point. The letter claims that if used properly, these methods will keep enslaved people divided and controllable for hundreds of years. This is something we're currently going through right now, these hundreds of years. This has to be broken down this way so you could see it. But the letter claims that if used properly, which the current state we're in right now shows every period, every exclamation point, every question mark has been dotted and documented, researched, studied, and perfected to a point where the abused have become ones that are in love with the abusers. There's a name for that. Let's look that up real quick. What do you call one that falls in love with said abuser? Right. Now, I knew the answer to this, but I wanted you to see it for yourself, for face value. Stockholm Syndrome. Keep in mind these two words: trauma bonding, Stockholm. Trauma, Stockholm. Syndrome is bonding to me. It's the same thing to me, right? These two words, syndrome and bonding, really are basically the same description. In other words, the actual not polite, but the actual diagnosis is Stockholm and trauma, period. But let's get back to the Willie Lynch. Now, you see this as Chat GBT up here. So I wanted you to see this in your own eyes. Even if not historically authentic, the letter is powerful because it reflects real tactics that were indeed used or are indeed being used. Let's start there. Enslaved communities were intentionally divided. I must go here, right? There's a real purpose between Crips and Bloods being red and blue, Democrat and Republic being red and blue. Imagery. They realize when you can see these things, imagery, if they control the things that you see, they control your basic understanding of them. So when they give the Democratic Party and the Republican Party a color identity, it automatically triggers in the back of the mind unconsciously to a person like me, believe it or not, red and blue in the hood, Crip and Blood. Now we got to remember that Crips and Bloods were started somewhat as a Black Panther party. But would it be safe to say that X, Y, and Z infiltrated the Crips and Blood at an early age too? I'm willing to bet on it. Although no one ever spoke of that, I'm willing to count on it. You're not going to get these X, Ys, and Bs running around infiltrating the Black Panther Party and things of that nature, and they're not going to do anything of threatening nature behind it. The same way. That's just idiotic to think different. That's really idiotic to think different. The skin tone, I think we're looking at that the wrong way, because I think the way they look at it is let's promote white against black and watch everything in between transpire. So one of the reasons why I've come to that understanding is to go back and look at the true history of politics, pretty much. And you find in the 1700s, it was very common for black folks to vote. It wasn't until the 1900s that we were told we were not allowed to vote. I mean, of course, amongst the wars, these things have been implemented over the 1800s and maybe even the late 1700s. But it goes to show that there was some type of political structure, some type of political theater before all these wars even started. So we're going back in the 16s and the 1500s if you're really doing your math here. I'm going to show you that though, but I got to finish this part here. Let's see, I think I skipped a little bit on it. So, now, this is a little more detailed, this is why I had to bring this up, the talking points, excuse me. Because I want you to see how a person of, a well-learned person, should I say, will look at this letter and break it down. So we looked at the layman's terms, but now we're going to get more into it, where there's key points in here that will show you exactly what you're going through today, if you know where to look. So, claimed to be a 1712 speech in Virginia by a British slaveholder named Willie Lynch, allegedly outlined a system to keep enslaved Africans divided, obedient, and easy to control. Historians doubt its authentic. Yeah, I can't even say the word. We get it. I'm gonna just move on. My bad. But the ideas reflect real methods used during slavery. I get like that sometimes. My mind gets to running. I apologize. Forgive me, but I will move on. I'm not going to keep apologizing. I just wanted to get that one out the way because I have other thoughts running through my head and I'm trying to keep a track of them. At the same time, I need to be able to pull up other information. So I got to keep a track of that while, giving you this information. So we went over the old versus young to get back on track. My bad. Promote jealousy within the community. Now that's really the number one way we got where we are here, by living impoverished. But what I find when dealing with promoting the jealousy within the community, it's basically like whether you got a bag or not. But that doesn't just equate to the hood. That, equates to natural life. Like, everybody wants to have something. Everybody wants to feel like, the things that they have are worth something. If not just having someone, at the same time. So when you look at the next line, it creates constant suspicion, so unity never forms. So when you create that difference mentality, when you create that, you don't got and you ain't this and you ain't that, you create understandings outside of that get tacked on without even consciously knowing. Like, okay, so to get a bag, what morals are you willing to drop? What standards are you willing to leave behind? We're not looking at that. That turns into family we never speaks to. Like these things don't just stay in one area. It's a domino effect, so to speak. strip men of authority and leadership. That's really key to make the man seem real docile and unnecessary. Like, you know, because then they can prowl on your youth. I mean, that's the whole entire point, of this right here. How are they prying on your youth? How are they prying on our youth? How are they taking more and more from the fabric of life without us seeing or saying anything baffles me. But to give the youth their voice back, I gotta say something. I can't just sit by like everybody else, you know. And I want to say this, and I had to say it that way because I want women to know that I am not trying to take no power from you. You are great and superior beings. However, if we do not play roles in life, if we do not adhere to certain standards and boundaries, then we leave the government no choice but to set them in front of us. Is that not the truth? Is that not why they come up with more and more restrictions and laws every year? Now remember, we're dealing with a war here. I need for you to understand this to every extent. Like, this is very, very important information. If you're at this point, I must say this is partially pre-recorded. So I will come to your comment to some point. If not, I will respond to your comment in the comment section if possible. So please like, subscribe, and share. Train women to be distrustful of men. One thing about women that don't trust you, they do not respect you. If you look at today's society, we got to break that down in a whole. Women have no real purpose in today's men have no real purpose in today's women's lives because they can get a bag on their own, they can have a baby by damn near anything or anyone without being ridiculed or, I don't really want to say it, but yeah, publicly shamed. However, I must say this again. I am not taking a shot at women. Please understand. My only plight is to get you to take note. If we do not have roles, we do not have boundaries and standards, you're only going to leave the government to set these for you. So you not needing a man is showing up in today's society really emotionally because you're emotionally raising children behind it. I'm not knocking your efforts. I'm not knocking your truth. However, there's more than one truth there. So please, and I do mean please, do not take what I am saying to be of any ignorance. Because it's not. It's just the truth. When you don't need a man, that breaks the fabric of life. A tree, the female tree, needs the male tree to produce more trees. So if you don't have that, how will you produce more children? So they got us understanding, they got us thinking that it is okay not to. But here's something I found, right? Here's something I must touch bases on, right? Because I once was a hood nigga, so I realized something. The relationships that boys don't get, that men don't get from their parents, both male and female, they find in the streets. But to give that a little more text, a man or a boy is prone to want to be in a relationship with a female and give it his all. However, that same theory can be applied to all relationships within a boy or a man. So when you don't find it where it should come easy and natural, we find it amongst each other in the streets. When you tap into that understanding and you realize a lot of these boys are growing up being raised by females that only deal in emotion, that only deal in fears, somewhat, so to speak. This is what you have. Irrational youth that move and think impulsively. I was once asked, why do I pause so much in my conversation? It wasn't until I realized that when you become an older man, you tend to want to make sure your words are together. You want to tend to make sure your thoughts are not running together. You want to make sure that, everything aligns properly without making you look bad or, seeming like it's coming from some place of animosity, jealousy, or anything. I mean, there's a lot of ways I could put this conversation here for you. I don't know that I need to break that all the way down. I will hope that you have the understanding that I'm trying to give you out of that so I can move forward, but the correlation they share with the current situation, you have to begin to take ownership. And once again, we still on the women. Now, us as men, we play a bigger, vital, more, important role. So I guess we get a lot more blame for not knowing how to be men. And I think to some extent it's deserving because the men before us didn't teach us what it was meant to be a man. But then again, that's where it's important to understand most of us didn't have men. And if we did, we had drug addicts. We had gangsters to look up to. We had people around the corner that really never amounted to much. But, they were popular. People feared them. People kept their names meaning something. Who don't want that? Who don't want notoriety? Teach division so deeply it becomes self-sustaining. Fear. Break the spirit through terror and violence. Now this is where we're at. This is what I'm going to break down in this entire video, in this entire broadcast, this entire live, because some of this is pre-recorded. But this is what I'm going to break down to you completely live. Break the spirit through terror and violence. Now remember, this is war. Dependency. Enslaved people rely on the master for survival. Now we just went over that. So I hope I don't have to go back to those two words. Division. Ensure they fight each other, not the system. not the system. So when I say to you, your vote is retarded. I don't vote. I don't know why one votes. Vote gets you nowhere. You know what I look at voting as? I look at voting as insanity. You know, doing the same thing over and 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 over. By the way, can I do that again? Look, let me say it this way to you. We fought as black folks to vote, but yet black folks black folks weren't given anything, haven't been given anything, and are not going to be given anything. Why? Because black folks haven't demanded or given it to themselves. Let's just say that first and foremost. But if you do not know what to demand for yourself, then how will you demand it? That's where we are, and that's why we're here. Let's clear that up right now. But before we go on, there's a few more parts right here I need to touch bases on. So let's continue. Excuse me, I'm going to do this way. Even if the letter is fake, the methods were real. See, now, I believe I understand who wrote this. And I believe I understand who they gave it to. Because this letter, it just supposedly, showed up during the Million Man March back in 1995. And, I can show you, and I will show you throughout history to date, where things just pop up out of nowhere that existed way back in the day. So if you have a memory, I need for you to remember that we're at this point, and I'm saying this to you. I'm hoping that my conversation is understandable to everybody, because sometimes I talk in a way where sometimes I be trying not to confuse myself with everything I have going on in my head. So if you come to that point and you need a better understanding, please say something. Like I said, I will respond, if not in the comments here on this video. But I do apologize once again for that. But to move forward, even if this letter is fake, the methods were real. Families were separated. Male rebellion was crushed. Enslaved people were taught to distrust other more than the oppressed. So that's basically your hood right there. That's what that is. Like that's the hood right there. But that's the world in a nutshell. That's not just the hood. That's the world. Everything is at odds, and those things that are at odds are being put at the forefront. And know that I mean those things that are at odds are put to the forefront. But let's go over how they mind manipulated you into these odds, right? They put sports up there. They get you into the sports. And they got you betting on the odds there, right? They got it down to a point where you could bet on politics now. Already knowing who you gonna pick. Even though it don't matter who you gonna pick, because the person's already picked. But don't get sidetracked, because we about to get into all that, man. All that. So, I needed to bring this full circle here, though, because I want to show you gender conflict. Now, here it says mistrust between black men and women. No. Gender conflict. Gender conflict. Gender conflict. Gender confliction. I wonder who was the one that gave us.
Now, before we go on, I need to say this. I had to bring you to that word, gender conflict. because that's where we're at right now. Exactly. That is what's plaguing our youth right now, most of all. And it's by design that we have all just accepted without even really having any conscious understanding of what was going on. And until you get that understanding, you could never be free. You could never be a people that prosper. You could never get ahead in nothing you do as far as people, excuse me, when it comes to people controlling everything that you can do. My whole attempt here is not to incite nothing. So I have to say this again. I am not trying to incite nothing. I am not trying to start nothing. I am not trying to, play nobody or talk against government or none of that. However, this is all public information. I'm gonna just show you where they played you using the media. I'm gonna show you how they played you in your presidents. I'm gonna show you how they played you throughout history to get you to this point to date. Because that's the war. Information is the war. Physically and mentally. That's your war. So I had to break that down because of this word. Like I said, gender conflict. This next segment, I got to let it play. There's two parts to this next segment. I'm not going to say nothing until the end of the second segment. I am going to let it play because I need for you to be able to have your own understanding of what is going on. But before I let the first segment play, I will tell you, this lady, she's spot on. There's just one misunderstanding she has, and I'll break that down in the second segment. So let's get to it.
Could it be we were played? Let's get into it. Check this one out.
But they are in jail, away from my mother, your husband, our families.
1994 crime bill, it did contribute to mass incarceration in our country.
In the meantime, an awful lot of people were jailed for minor drug crimes after the
Exactly right.
Was it a mistake to support it?
Let me just say it up front. Barack Obama was not a win for the culture. He was a setup. He didn't save us. He sedated all of us. He didn't fight for the people. He fronted for the elites. And the fact that people is still worshiping him like he is some type of untouchable icon tells us how deep the psychological manipulation really went. They branded him as hope. Hollywood turned him into a hero. And let's be honest, America got caught in the fantasy. But Black America, we treated him like he was the second coming to Jesus. Meanwhile, he picked Joe Biden for his vice president, the man that wrote the actual blueprint for mass incarceration. He bailed out the banks that stole millions of homes from working class families, and not just Black people, Latino, white, everybody. He pushed LGBT and gender ideology harder than he pushed marriage, fatherhood, or actual healing in any community. He didn't fix anything. He repackaged dysfunction in a tailored suit and sold it as progress. And quite frankly, I find him disgusting, and his wife too. If she's really his wife, I find her disgusting as well. These people never cared about the Black community. They never cared about America. They care about symbolism, celebrities, and stand in the elite's good graces. Obama didn't save us. He psychologically disarmed us, and he drove a wedge between Black and white Americans like we hadn't seen in decades. He didn't unite this country. He split it clean down the middle and weaponized identity to do it. So this episode is not just for Black people. It's for anyone who still believes the illusion, anyone who thinks race loyalty means silence, anyone who's been watching the country spiral and wondering why and how this happened. Because if you think Obama was a win for the people, you've been hypnotized. So today we're breaking the trends. We're pulling back the curtain on the branding, the policies, and the propaganda, and exposing how Obama became the most dangerous kind of puppet, one who looked like us, but never moved with us. I'm Carmen JC, and I'm here to wake people up. Make sure you like this video so it gets around because more people need to hear the truth. Let's get into it. They didn't pick him because he was special. They picked him because he was obedient. Barack Obama didn't arise from the streets of Chicago by shaking hands with everyday people and earning their trust. He was selected, protected, and strategically inserted into the political machine. And quite frankly, that's the part the Black community still don't want to admit. He played the game and he played it well. In 1995, State Senator Alice Palmer, a respected Black woman in Chicago politics, decided to run for Congress. She gave Obama her blessing to run for her Illinois State Senate seat. But when her congressional campaign failed miserably, she came back to reclaim her seat. Obviously, Obama was like, no, and she had to run against him. But he didn't just run against her. He challenged her nominating petitions, he questioned the validity of her signatures, and he got her kicked off the ballot. In fact, every single one of the opponents was challenged and eliminated.
To deliver eulogy, President Biden, back when he was a senator, he and Jimmy Carter shared a political advisor, Pat Caddell. And Pat Caddell, there's former President Obama walking in. First Lady Michelle Obama is not going to be with him today, but here he is joining the club, saying hello to Mike Pence, saying hello to Mike Pence's wife Karen, saying hello to Al Gore. We did not see a greeting of or by President Trump. There he is saying hi to Marilyn Quayle. Did shake hands?
He did shake.
He shook. Okay, I couldn't see it from the angle I was at. Obama and Trump sitting next to each other, talking to each other there. But President Obama did say hello to Marilyn Quayle and former Vice President Dan Quayle.
Oh, that's such an image.
That is an image.
It's
I mean,
good,
you don't
good
see
image.
for it's always striking whenever you see any of these people who were political opponents. Although Obama and Trump never ran against each other. Here's George W. Bush and First Lady Laura Bush. Interesting how Barack Obama stood up to let them through. Again, saying hello to the former Vice President.
Please just bear with me.
Mike Pence.
Trust me when I break this footage
George
down.
W. Bush.
You'll
I may
understand.
have missed it, Jake, but I do not think former President Bush or Laura Bush shook hands with.
They walked right past it.
With the Trumps.
I would
walked right
find
by.
that
Yeah.
very surprising if they didn't. Maybe we didn't see that.
We might not have seen it. The angle keeps shifting back
right,
and forth.
Right.
I'd still have it.
But you see Barack Obama and Donald Trump having what seems like friendly chit-chat. There's former President Bill Clinton with First Lady and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton walking around. On the other side, it's, of course, the closest to the seats, but also avoids the potential awkwardness of a moment between the Trumps and the Clintons that might not be as warm as the ones she's having with the former vice president. So let's go to Caitlin Collins, who's outside the cathedral.
I mean, Jake, to be able to hear those conversations that are happening, these are just moments that you don't see hardly ever. And just to go back to that moment where Trump walked into the room and shook hands with Mike Pence, that is the first interaction that those two have had. They have not even been in the same room in 4 years. I called to just double check that this morning with a few aides of both of theirs. And it just was a moment to see them come and shake hands with one another. And Jeff, obviously to see this moment, Jeff, you covered President Obama, to see the two of them speaking to one another, seated next to one another, which I don't think they have been at one of these funerals or gatherings where they've been in the same room before.
They have not. It truly is extraordinary. The last time most of them were in the same room was in 2018 at the funeral of George H.W. Bush. President Trump was in office then. One person missing from this is Michelle Obama. I'm told by her advisors that she had a scheduling conflict. She's actually still in Hawaii from an extended holiday vacation. So she's missing there. But if you look from these presidencies, they are linked one to another to another. That's how it works. Of course, and Hillary Clinton, seeing her there. But Jimmy Carter, as you'll remember, Casey, we covered the Bernie Sanders campaign. Jimmy Carter supported him over her. So there are so many rifts between and rivalries between these former presidents. But today, for at least, you can see them. There is comedy and somewhat of a camaraderie.
Well, they're united in a unique way now that they have all won the right to be a part of the fraternity. But as you point out, they are, before arriving to the Oval Office, fierce rivals with those. And in the case of the way our politics has played out in recent decades, you have seen members of the same families running for president. Two Bushes serving as president of the United States. Obviously, one Clinton serving, the other running. And this extended conversation between Donald Trump and Barack Obama, just so fascinating, especially when you think about how some of the things that Donald Trump said and did while Obama was president, while your point is taken, they didn't run against each other. It was so incredibly personal.
Yeah, he claimed he wasn't an American citizen.
And of course, as
when
Caitlin
here comes
noted
in the
before,
room Vice President Harris and Doug Emhoff also entering the room. Harris is right behind President Biden in her motorcade, so obviously we should expect to see him soon as well. And as we know, we're thinking as Gerald Ford's son is going to be reading his words, his eulogy for President Carter here. I was thinking this morning, you know, about how Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter both in a way had President Nixon to thank for coming into office, and to look at this rare club here known as the President's Club. So many of the trajectories of their presidencies is what led their successor to then get into office with Biden and Trump, and to see this moment as Trump and Obama
and Trump never
Okay,
ran
now
against each
we're
other.
gonna get into this. My bad.
Or by.
I want to start here, right? Because I want you to take notice. They're going to tell you his wife is not there. They're going to give you some cockamamie story. So I'm going to pause this real quick. I want you to take notice. Oh, excuse me. I got to go back just a tad. I want you to see exactly what it looks like. My bad. I'm going to let it play as I talk. Fuck. When I get to it, I'll pause it.
And Pat Caddell, there's former
But
President Obama.
when you look at this video here, the first thing you missed was
First Lady Michelle
the
Obama
order
is
of
not
power.
gonna be with him,
See, that's what you're
today.
dealing with here. You're dealing with power. He come without his wife so that him and Trump can have a
saying hello
private
to Mike
conversation. Now, the way you get
Saying
that
hello to-
understanding, you see the people in the back, how they're all
Pence's
wanting to
wife,
see if he
Karen,
shakes
saying hello to
Trump's
Al Gore.
hand. He never does. But this is how you know that that's the fact. When you notice
of or
every man
by
of power in this room is
President
with his
Trump.
wife,
There is
what
some
side is
Maryland,
she sitting on?
Quayle.
The only one that breaks that chain is who? Kamala Harris.
Obama and Trump
You know,
sitting,
her vice
sitting
president
talking
sits
each other there.
to the left of her.
but President
Other than
Obama
that,
did,
every
say hello to
woman
Marilyn Quayle
that is
and
there with
former
her
Vice
husband is sitting to the left.
Dan Quayle.
They can't have that conversation
That is an
if
image. I mean, you
his
don't-
wife
you
is
don't see,
there.
for it's always striking.
So they
whenever
understand
you
this,
see any of these people who
and
were
they're
political
telling you
opponents.
how to look at this
Although Obama
conversation.
and Trump never
They're not showing
ran
you
against each other,
the entire
here's
room.
George
They're not
W. Bush
showing you
and First
everything that's going
Laura
on.
Bush.
Why? Because they want to focus where your
Interesting
focus
how
is going to
Barack-
be.
Barack
They want to
Obama
direct
stood
your
up,
attention
to
to
let them
exactly
through.
what they want you to
Again,
see and hear. This is why they're making
saying
light of
hello
the
to former Vice
conversation.
Presidents,
But
Al Gore, Mike Pence,
when Kamala Harris sits
George W.
down,
Bush.
she's the
I
only
may
one
have
that is
to say
not
that I
understanding
do not think former President
the whole
Bush or
plot
Laura
here.
Bush shook hands
Now,
with
when the lady
Trump.
spoke
I would
and
Trump.
she
I
talked
would
about Trump, excuse
find
me,
that
before
very
Obama, I gotta cut that off for a second. When the lady spoke in the clip before this, I said she missed one vital thing. Obama and George Bush are related. So if you think that he got picked in Chicago by sheer mistake or sheer luck, you're a fool. You need to understand that. You're a fool. Now, I let it play so you can actually see it for yourself, how the media, they just talked you straight through it. They talked you straight through it. And most people totally missed it. When I first sat down, I was looking to see the reaction of the people, because that would let you know what was exactly going on. And as you can see, the only one that even is understanding of their conversation is Trump's wife. You know, George Bush's wife minding her business, playing with Barack on the side. Excuse me for that. So watch it again. When Kamala Harris sits down, watch her reaction. She looks, everybody else got the memo. No one spoke. No one looked at Trump. No one, no, that was because this conversation was not to be interrupted. So if you think for 1 second this guy's going to go to jail, because that's all over the internet. They're going to give you this Epstein file. That's all over the internet. You're a fool. They're showing you dead to rights that you have no choice in the matter. That's what that is. I'm gonna say this. I said this when they had the whole vote. I didn't know you could skip a term to come back and run again. I thought you had to run immediately, and if you didn't, you know what I'm saying, you was done at that. I didn't know. They're talking now like there's terms where you can run for a third term. That's what make this important. But I ain't even done yet. You know what I'm saying? I really ain't, you know. Forgive me for this, man. I kind of touched it and didn't mean to touch it. Yeah, like I said, watch when she sits down.
Also entering the room.
Listen to how they
Harris
talk.
is right behind President Biden in her motorcade, so obviously we should expect to see him soon as well. And as we know, we're thinking as Gerald Ford's son is going to be reading his words, his eulogy.
The only one that broke
President
the chain
Carter
of power.
Here. I was thinking
The
this
only
morning,
one.
you know, about how
Everybody
Gerald
else
Ford
in
and
that
Jimmy
room
Carter
was
both
sitting
in a
with
way
their
had
wives.
President
Their
Nixon
wives
to
is
thank
to the
for,
left.
for coming into office, and to look at this rare club here, known as the President's Club.
She's been duped. She's
so
finally
many of the
realized she's been
trajectories of
duped.
their presidencies
See
is
them
what
people
led
still
their
staring.
successor to then
They
get
still
into office
watching.
with Biden and Trump, and to
And they
see this
still
moment
telling you
as Trump
what
and
to
Obama
see.
are continuing that conversation.
They still telling
And
you what to
second-
see.
Second gentleman Doug Emhoff there, Vice President Harris there.
But to
Jake,
get
the only
into
person
this,
we were
right?
waiting
To get into this, right? Excuse me. Now, we got to bring this, before I go further, we got to bring this poem up. First They Came. It's a Nazi poem, right? During the Nazi war. First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out. Why am I choosing to show you this right now? Why am I choosing to bring this to your attention? Well, for one, I have to bring it to your attention when you realize the history behind the Bush family. A lot of people don't know the history behind the Bush family, so I'm going to give it to you real quick. In fact, you know, that's another part I wanted to do kind of live. You know, I want to show you for face value that this is totally live. This is totally in your face. Now, you could do this on your own, you know. You don't have to take my word for it, but I figured, you know, to give you some text behind the video, I would do this way. So, you know, George Bush and Obama are related. But I had to follow more to get a better understanding to where Trump comes into play at, to actually solidify it. Like, I didn't just go with what I thought on that video. You know, that video actually I put together. I come to those videos later in my understanding. I had this understanding 2 years ago that, excuse me, how to connect the dots. So the way I wanted to connect the dots is I wanted to figure out how Nikola Tesla fit it all in, right? So I did George Bush relationship to Tesla. Oh, hold on. My fault. Hold on, my bad. I spelled it wrong. Goofy. Now I'm gonna just pull up anything here. I don't even know what I'm pulling up. So I wanted to try it. That's too much. We gotta go back. I could do better. I'll do it this way. Bingo. Now, when you get to understanding how this fits in, you'll find that Trump's uncle was Nikola's right-hand man. In fact, Trump's uncle is the one that found Nikola Tesla's papers. However, who was the family in power at this point? And why were they at power? All that, you can research this information. Just look at this video, one of these videos right here on your own. I'm not getting into all that right now. I just wanted to show you, like, this is how I got to that point. So forgive me if it's a little slow, or, you know, I'm making a mistake or something along the way and I'm losing your attention. I ask that you forgive me for that, because this is really my first time at this. So I wanted to give you something different, and I wanted to give you something, you know, that is meaningful at the same time, not just, you know, a bunch of conversation on how to keep following behind the bullshit. You know, we need more people to start looking at what's really going on to figure out how to fight the best fight for our youth. Until that happens, we're going to continue to go down these rabbit holes. We're going to continue to repeat the history that I'm about to get into right here in front of you. In fact, that's all that has happened since the 1700s. That is the entire point. Since the Civil War, and we got to understand that nothing is civilized until the white man touched it. So that in itself should tell you it didn't even start to the Civil War. Because that's what the war was for. But like I said, I'm going to show you that. Now, there's a part in the first segment, right, that I said I hope that you remember that I would come back to, as far as how they come up with information such as the Willie Lynch letter in the middle of nowhere. No one ever heard of it until a certain point in history. So you got to remember, over last couple months, I was trying to speak on something, and it was a book that I had got. And I found it odd that this didn't come out the first time Trump ran for president. I found it odd that it came out the second time. Like, all the information people were searching up and looking for the first time, you would have thought this came up if there was some truth behind it. However, you see the date. Like I said, I could do this easier on, well, it wouldn't be easier on Google, but I could definitely do this on Google. So if you don't want to do it this way on YouTube, you can do it on Google, Chat GBT. You may want to change your wording or something. I mean, I don't know, because whatever, you know, words you give the system is the production it gives you back. So sometimes you be needing different words to trigger the algorithm right. Sometimes it'll just leave you in limbo if you don't. But now that we have the connection shared between Trump and Obama, right? Now we go back and we understand that there's a German lineage there. That's the point of showing you the German poem. What is giving Germany, or what is giving the German people so much power? Here's a quick theory to step outside of what's going on here. But this is the direction we're going, so I'm comfortable with doing it. However, this is for the next segment, my next video. But I'm going to do a segment on the Indian and the stone. But that's where the Nikola Tesla comes into play. Because I believe that they found so much technology here in the United States, here in the Americas, when they came here, that they didn't know how to, you know, basically become a natural part of it all. So they just found ways to just start creating wars and taking it. I mean, I find that by looking for the information on the train. Like, I seen where they say approximately it was built this time. But you got to remember, at the times of these great things like the train or this great technology being built, there was a bunch of wars going on. So you're not going to have a bunch of production going on at the same time. You're not going to have, you know what I'm saying, the making of mass production of steel. You're not going to have that. So if you telling me we stepped straight out of some type of civil war into the industrial movement, then I'm not buying that at all. You might, but I'm not looking at it like that. Because of what? What did they really take from Nikola Tesla? What did they find that this man really knew? How did they take this information and use it against the rest of the world? That, like I said, that's really for the next topic. But I had to show you that there's German lineage, because when you go and you look at every president that you have picked in over 100 years, when you find that they all have some German lineage, you got to question why you even vote. But I know that people are not going to do that history. I know people are not going to do that. So I took time out to quickly put something together just by showing you this much. I hope that you truly understand that there's a lot more going on with these politics than you could ever imagine. Because as long as you continue to vote for these people, you continue to vote for their agenda. They're not asking you what you want, but they're demanding what you can do. How is a society going to prosper behind a government or a leadership that is built that way? It's only designed to be destructive. It's only designed to be ignorant. It's only designed to hurt and kill people like you and me. That's a fact. You can sit there and cuss me out because I didn't vote Democrat or Republic. When you see now for face value, if you don't see it for face value after that little clip, something is wrong with you. After those two little clips, how the lady was saying, and the number one thing y'all might have really taken and missed on was where I tied the Willie Lynch letter directly into Obama, when I stated to you several times, gender conflict. Okay, what did Obama do? What did Obama do? Wasn't that the talking point in the Willie Lynch letter? Gender confliction. Our youth are being led down a slaughter hole, not because I'm not a good enough parent, not because I'm not a good enough neighbor, or not because I'm not a good enough person to get up and try to encourage somebody. No, it's behind the food you eat. When you eat of an animal that is full of blood and fear, when you eat that raw steak, that blood and fear, what do you think you're eating? You're eating the DNA of an animal that is bred out of fear. So when we come up with these diseases, not only do we got to look at it that way, but we got to go back and we got to look at the German understanding of how to control the population. And one of them was fluoride. But if I don't brush my teeth, I'm a funky mouth motherfucker. I mean, I get it, but I mean, it's just what it is. Either have a funky mouth or some bad teeth. I mean, look at the youth. I'm 50 and my teeth don't look like theirs. And that's no shot at nobody. That's just the truth. Kids coming up with autism and things like that. We're not voting for these things. We're not asking for these things. So why are they doing these things to us? The number one reason, the number one way they're doing this, because you have allowed them to do this to my kind. Period, point blank. When you let someone take advantage of someone, do you think they're going to stop there? That was the point of showing you that letter, that poem. What did it say? How they figured out how to get you mind manipulated. How they figured out how to get you to a point where you just acquiesce to everything that they say and everything they do. It's just simple. All they did was bombard you with war. That's it. That's it. I've come to that understanding because I'm a 75. I'm a baby of the 70s. Excuse me. and they bombed Philly in the 70s. I'm a child of the 80s, and they bombed Philly in the 80s. What I'm about to show you here, what I'm about to get more into here, is not only proof of what I think, but why I think that way. I mean, when you dealing with a system and you overthrow the system time and time and time again, generation after generation after generation, the only way you can sustain power is to keep people in fear. That's it. You buy into the fear by voting. But you not only buy into the fear, you buy in to the destruction they have done to your people, your kind. And when I say your kind, I don't mean just black, because trust me, when you do the math and you do this history and you look around the world, they're still doing this to date. Land grab. In fact, that's what makes this so important, because everything that you are being blindfolded into right now, all these wars and all that, is pretty much just a land grab. And how do you know? Follow the history. Look how many times they destroyed Louisiana. Look how many times they destroyed Texas or the North Carolina. With some type of weather, with some type of flood, fire. I mean, you got more history of them destroying these places than you do of them building these places up like they claim they did. When I found that in the 1800s, they were voting, I said, oh man, we've really been duped. You mean to tell me 100 years go by and we can't vote no more? You mean to tell me 100 years go by and we can't vote no more? Or is it that they're keeping you distracted from something else? Because that's what I really think it is. And I think at this point, we're coming to an understanding of exactly what that is. And that's just simple, who we truly are. Who we truly are. If we realize who we truly are, not just as a community, but as people, as tribesmen, then we can function better in our neighborhoods. Then we can take better control over our own lives. I mean, look at it. Look at it this way, man. I'm going to pause this real quick because I had this pretty much mapped out, but I need to touch this bases real quick, right? How do you get this dude controlling your food industry? This dude controls your food industry, hands down. And I dare not say his name. If you don't know, look it up. But on top of that, right, you legalize synthetic meat. Now, we didn't vote on the synthetic meat. I don't remember that anybody ever telling me that was part of the program or part of the ballot. So forgive me if I'm wrong. You know, if I'm wrong, please tell me, because I will say I apologize, I'm sorry, or whatever. But where do you think they're going to begin to implement that meat? Well, let me show you how. Forget where. Trump came into office. He came into office promising to do something for the farmer. And he kept his word. He gave them equipment. But he stole the workers. That made a lot of goddamn sense. Now there's nobody left to farm. So what is that going to leave you to do? turn to the synthetic meat. You see how you're being played? What is this synthetic meat going to do to the natural human being? Or the natural man, rather. Because hue means black. We're not going to get that twisted. But yeah, to the natural man, eating of synthetic foods. See, I have an understanding being once a street dude, a hood dude. Man, I would do something to you if you hurt my people, man. But my people were dying from cancer, and I ain't did nothing. I be feeling kind of stupid at the same time. I watch killers cry over their mom or their dad or somebody dying of cancer. These foods that they're feeding you, what do you think? And you're proudly running out and giving them to your children. Proudly. Nobody knows what a home-cooked meal is no more. But then again, that's where you got to understand that I kept stressing, I wasn't talking bad about the women. It's more about the boundaries. It's more about the standards. Because you got to look, you want me to be a certain man, I need you to be a certain woman. Therefore, we will have a certain image of God. Or, if God is to be born of a woman, he will come back to a righteous family. That's if he even exists. But if you don't have, people of great magnitude or great understanding, then how you going to have someone of that great nature to come back to? You're not, man. We waiting on somebody to save us that's never coming. Like, they got you blinded with these things, man. Just because they put it in a book don't make it so. We tend to fail to realize that. Oh, they put it in the book. It must have some truth to it. Well, let me show you a book. Let me show you a book, because I made a statement on a land grab, right? So let me show you a book. So you don't think that I'm just running my mouth, or I don't have a clear understanding of exactly how all this affects everybody, not just my kind. Although, like I said earlier, when you allowed or you helped or you permitted them to do our kind or my kind a certain way, what made you think they weren't going to come back and do you the same way? They might not got your generation, but they got your bloodline. And just because you believe in some type of Nazi theory don't mean you exempt. That's the point. The masters to be, they not indulging in this. Just the pawns. And as long as you follow everything that they tell you to do, that's what you are. This is why I chose to do it this way instead of taking my fight to the street. Because I felt like my voice is bigger. My voice is more understandable. My voice is more meaningful here. And I could be wrong. Excuse me. I could definitely be wrong. Definitely. However, the things that I'm showing you, the way I'm showing them to you, I know no one has ever broken them down. That funeral footage in itself, like, and if you still thinking Obama is some type of great hope savior, please, by all means, they have a plot, they have a plan for 2030. That was the message. That's the point. That's the destination. Forget 2025. Forget 2021. The destination is to have you totally enslaved by 2030. What do you think they building robots for? Why do you think wars at an all-time high? Why do you think war is the biggest conversation to have? And what do you think they're going to do once they build all these smart cities? And if you really want to know what a smart city looks like, if you really have no understanding of a smart city, just look it up. There's one in China. There's no crime. There's no crime. However, there's cameras on every corner. Everything's being video, audio surveillance. I mean, come on, man. We already going through that, man. I mean, imagine you laying there in your bed having sex with your wife and they watching you. They could design the system so it don't do that, but instead they watching you. They watching you. The system that you vote for. The system that keeps plaguing and destroying our youth. That destroyed my kind, my age group. War. That's all they did. And that's all they continue to do. If you think 9/11 was a terrorist attack, you right, but it wasn't done by who they told you. I wanted to bring that footage up too, but I thought I was taking too much time, not doing too much. But that information is out there and y'all won't look it up. You won't look for it. You just give somebody else your power. To have someone govern over you means you have no self-control. That's what that means. That's why they put you in the penitentiary, because you didn't make the fucking right choice. We keep falling for these things. We keep being a part of these things. We keep begging them to give us more rules, to give us more sanctions, to give us more change. We're not looking at this in the right manner. We're not going about these things in the right way. We should be out here trying to help and protect each other instead of looking for something that is never going to come. Both God, and I hate to say that, and the government. Like, I'm still wondering what happened to all those people that, got washed out in North Carolina last year around this time. Like, you don't hear no more about that, how they rebuilding or none of that. But believe they're putting up smart hubs and they're going to build these smart cities in these places. Believe that. Believe that. Believe that. Believe that. And this book right here I'm about to show you, it show you how they use the color of law against black folks owning, housing and land. But understand, if they did it to me or my kind, why wouldn't they do it to you? What's to stop them? Not you.
The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein is a compelling and meticulously researched book that provides a detailed examination of the United States government's active role in segregating American cities and towns. Rothstein debunks the widely held belief that residential segregation in America is merely the result of individual prejudices or economic factors, revealing instead a disturbing history of de jure segregation enforced by law and policy at the federal, state, and local levels. The book starts by tracing the origins of segregation to the early 20th century, detailing how the New Deal and subsequent federal housing policies explicitly excluded African Americans from homeownership opportunities and confined them to urban housing projects. Rothstein discusses the Federal Housing Administration's practice of redlining, which denied mortgages to black families and those living near black neighborhoods, effectively locking them out of the post-war housing boom and the wealth accumulation that came with it. Through a series of case studies, Rothstein shows how local governments enacted zoning laws designed to segregate communities, how public housing authorities deliberately placed projects in segregated areas, and how school district boundaries were drawn to ensure that schools remained segregated. He also covers the role of the courts and law enforcement in maintaining these barriers. Importantly, Rothstein connects these historical policies to contemporary issues, illustrating how past injustices continue to shape American cities and contribute to current racial disparities in wealth, education, and health. He argues that acknowledging this history of government-mandated segregation is crucial for addressing racial inequality today. The Color of Law is not just a history book, it is a call to action. Rothstein proposes that, because these segregationist policies were enacted by law, they can be undone by law. He suggests several remedies: from enforcing existing anti-discrimination laws more vigorously to creating new policies that promote integration and equity. In summary, The Color of Law sheds light on an often overlooked aspect of American history, challenging readers to confront the uncomfortable truth that segregation in the United States was not the result of mere personal prejudice or market forces, but was systematically imposed by governmental policy. It is a crucial read for anyone interested in understanding the root causes of racial inequality in America and exploring pathways towards a more equitable society.
Thank you for watching. If you found this...
Now, if you've been watching the news lately, right? Just yesterday or the day before, Trump was just on there talking about how they're going to give money. They're going to lower... what is it? I don't want to say it wrong, but I think I got it mixed up in my head. How they're gonna use the government to help drop interest rates on home builders. But who does that actually benefit? Now he's writing it up. He's making it sound like it's gonna help the man who can't get a loan. But then who you gonna get the loan from? The same people that already got the money to buy the land to build the property. So you're going to go to the person, as we already know, to build this home or, to buy this house. You're going to go to the person that has the money. But once you build this house, you got to go to the government to maintain it. So you got to buy all the material from the same people that you basically. Hold on. Yeah, I kind of got sidetracked a little bit and I kind of confused myself. I'm going to start over. What you have going on is a circle of business that's not being looked at. You got the people who control the lumber and all that, the wealthy families. So you buying your material from them. Meanwhile, they're already getting whatever stipends or whatever from the government to be able to drop these interest rates or these prices on this material. However, when they drop it, they're only going to drop it a few pennies. So a few $1,000s makes a big deal, a big difference to you and me. But to them, they're laughing because they're continuing on what they have been doing for years, and that's just manipulating the system. That's all that is. There's no real win there. You never really own the land, therefore you just paying someone else to live there. The government I almost said it. But yeah, look at it this way. All them houses just got burnt down in the Palisades. Did they go back to any of them people and give them automatic deeds to their land? These are rich people. They should, something not catastrophic should be, something like that should go unsaid. It wasn't your fault. It was, here, build as fast as you can, do what you need to do. We know this land belongs to you. Because somewhere they have a record electronically. But that's not what's going on there. That's how you know it's a land grab. So where the things seem like they don't really mesh, you're not really seeing where they do. Because me and you, we don't own no lumber yard. So who's going to rebuild that shit? So you're going to go to them to buy that shit, is what I'm saying. You're going to go get a loan from the same people that caused the problem. When you look at the history of these wars, when you look at the history of these wars, and what you're going to find is, like I said, they all take place in the same area. And the way you do the math, right, to see if I'm right as far as, slavery not really even starting until the Civil War, let's go back and look at all the Indian and black towns that were destroyed in the time of Civil War and match them up. Because that's what you'll do. You'll match them up to a T. You will match them up so good. I'm trying to find the document. I got one here somewhere. Yeah, hold on one second, please. Give me 1 second. Can't find it. Oh, here we go. No, this one. Yep. Here we go. I apologize for that. Forgive me. I thought I had it queued up and I didn't. But yeah, please forgive me. If you look here, right, I don't really know how to make it too much bigger. Guess that worked. See if I can make it full screen for you. Now, 1763, right? You got to go back and look at what Indian War that was. Now, like I said, when did your Civil War start?
Summary insightful.
I don't know what the hell that was. That was weird. I was doing something else. My bad. I was typing in, when did the Civil War start? Just in case someone doesn't know. Now, I'm going to show you this. The war started in April 12, 1861. However, when you cross-reference, right, the actual places, they had these wars. This is your timeline. And 90% of them happened when? In the 1800s. Do you see that? Do you actually see what I am showing you? And look, right? These are not just black towns. These are Indian towns, Indian places as well. Like I said, the very first one, I forgot the name of dude that led the war. And he actually was able to defeat the Brits. But if we go to the next little page, what do you have? Now, if you was really looking at that first page, look at the repetition again. And some of these go by 1 year. Like if we go back to the top page, if we go back up to the top page, okay, let's find what? Tennessee, Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana. Then we come right down here, find Louisiana, Oklahoma, Tennessee. And then it comes down. It comes down the pike, and it does it again. But look at what we have here. At the very bottom, right? You have the repetition starting all over again in the 1900s. The Carolinas, Oklahoma. The only thing that's not on here, for the most part, is, what they did to Tuskegee and all that. But I got information on that too. I just don't want to go through the struggle and the time of pulling it up. But there's plenty of towns that they did that to as well. In fact, it's gotten to a point where one of the reasons why I felt compelled to do this, because if you know me, you know my little circle. We had a friend. I dare not mention his name in respect of his family. However, I will say he was in a penitentiary, and they walked past the cell spraying the whole penitentiary and ended up catching cancer and dying from it. This was just recently, less than 10 years ago. Chemical warfare. This is why they are pushing to have these people on your streets, so they can make a slave population out of your children. If not your children, your children's children. You can't defeat the animal you don't know lives within. You can't defeat the animal you do not take acknowledge of. Like I said, I do not vote. I do not, if you can't tell, I do not adhere to religions because I see something else to be had. Like, why do they choose to manipulate my kind so much? We get in places of leadership like the police. We don't know how to act. Like dude screaming at the Black Panther Party. I was looking at that situation, and I was looking at the black cop taking lead, talking to dude. And the first thing I thought is he should have turned right around like dude did and put his officer in check to gain the respect of the community. And he did not. However, I do feel as though he might have reprimanded him in private. But no, if you do that shit against your own kind in public, the public should demand that to come back in return. You can't keep destroying our communities and don't think we're not going to destroy them behind you. Because as we say in the hood, right? Remember those two words? As we say in the hood, one of them was what? Trauma bonding. That's what we do in the hood. Because that's all the hood has ever been, full of fucking trauma. They got us thinking we fighting this and we fighting that. No, we fighting a fight we don't even know exists. Check this one out. In case you still ain't really understanding this whole Nazi understanding. Check this one out.
In ever-increasing numbers, the nation's youth has been going away to camp.
In the 1930s, there were these camps all across the country, and they looked normal. But it wasn't normal. It was Nazi camp.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
In the depths of the Depression, a great many Americans started to ask themselves whether the American experiment was failing.
Lots of Americans thought that capitalism, democracy, they were done for, and something else was going to have to take its place.
The membership card in the Friends of the New Germany. Note the American emblem, and over it, the Nazi swastika.
As foreign as this might seem, fascist ideology tapped into some dark realities in America.
I'd like to tell you a few words about our purpose and aims.
He imagined that he was going to build a distinctively American version of Nazism.
They're after power, they're after influence within the very fabric of the United States.
They were literally holding parades in front of Jewish people's homes. There's no such thing as foreign fascism. Fascism is always homegrown.
Now let's leave that there for a second. Now, at first, I'm going to just be honest, right? I didn't really know how to take that. But then it just kind of made sense because you got to understand who backed Hitler. And some of the most predominant families here in America backed Hitler. So why wouldn't they set themselves up to win regardless? That's what made me believe in this. That's the only thing made me believe in this. It just makes sense. to self-preserve power, you got to make sure you're on the winning side of both sides. Not just the one who wins, because what if something vicarious happens and, you know, it don't work out the way you planned? You lose everything you worked for, everything you built, everything you've earned. This is what generational wealth truly is. But I had to show you that, right? Because, like I said, who do you think became your politicians? Okay, their kids might not be racist, but they still have some type of racist ideology, right? Because they did this, they indoctrinated the youth. So once you're indoctrinated as a youth, you tend not to outgrow that. I think that's a factor that most people don't really, touch bases on when they deal with indoctrinations. You never really outgrow them. You just adapt them and mold them and move on, but you never really outgrow them. So if you was once, a clan member, so to speak, you still have those traits. You still have those tendencies. Well, imagine that being embedded in your bloodline, in your DNA, because that's what it is. Like the trauma that I've been through is embedded in my DNA. It's not just passed down to me, it's passed down to my children's children. They're giving you this information. This information is not going to be here too much longer. They can't allow you to come to this understanding. This is what makes this even more important to the youth, because they got to have this understanding. They got to be able to see what's exactly going on. And I get it. This might not be the topic of the day. This might not be the exact kind of conversation a person wants to hear or have, or even wants to be a part of. But it's there. I don't care. Like, if you care for your children, you owe them due diligence. You owe them I don't even know what to really say. You owe them some effort. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what I could say to get you to understand how important this is. But we are never going to stop killing each other until we actually look at this as a factor. I mean, to break the conversation down where I haven't broken it down, we kept building black towns and they kept prospering better than the white ones were. That's why they wanted to integrate. The real Freeway Rick Ross story. Who was behind that? Your government, right? I mean, this is something that is known all over the internet, so they can't. I could tell you who. I'm not going to do that. That's for you to do your own for information. I'm not going to name certain names. That's what I'm not going to do. You understand what I'm saying? Because to some extent, whether you believe it or not, this is a touchy situation, and people will end up dead for this conversation. Like, that's where I'm really trying to stumble over my words, because I'm really trying to pay attention to exactly what I am saying without crossing lines. That's how important this is. Although I'm just using what they have on here, what Google permits me to do, and that's give you a reaction to any video that's up here. Anything the internet has, I can give you some type of reaction to it. We sitting around, we looking at things like, this thing don't matter here, that thing don't matter there, it's just this. No, why do they keep doing these things? Number one, it ain't all just about total control and power. There's some things that they don't want you to know, and you're beginning to find them out. That's why this is a 4-part series. Like I said, the first video, I didn't put no words, no commentary to it. I just was hoping that the people would see how women not wanting a man, how the welfare system destroyed our community. The only thing I didn't add to that was alcohol and drugs in these wars. But then that's where alcohol and drugs come in, right? Because we got to remember there's a war on drugs. There's a war for everything they want to take from you. There's a war on the housing crisis. I've heard the media say that. That's why I had to label this thing as war. Because I wanted you to see where you're going to say they don't correlate. Well, who has the power to create the war? It ain't me and you. Did America not drop bombs on its own people? But they don't owe you no reparations. They don't owe you no explanation. They don't owe you no public apology. They don't owe you shit. But you get up and go vote every 4 years. They tearing down more and more schools, or they're abandoning more and more schools and building more and more penitentiaries. And these penitentiaries are privatized to the same people building the houses, building these cell phones and computers. And here's the bigger kicker, right? They can only do this because your brother, my brother, your sister, your wife, your husband, they get up and go to work every day, and they allow these things to become law, knowing that this ain't the right way to go. But hey, what you supposed to do? Fight the system? No, just don't be a part of it. These things cannot thrive unless you are a part of it. These things make no sense unless you give them room. This Nazi stuff right here, we can take this all the way back to Constantine. And we got to understand, if we could take this Nazi all the way back to Constantine, first of all, excuse me, I wanted to do that here. I really want to do that here, but I think I've been on here long enough, so I'm about to wrap this up. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to do that. However, I am going to give you this tidbit and give you a final thought and step off of here. You know what I'm saying? But when you look at this Nazi and you dealing in rights, the first right, second right, third right, I think we're like in the fourth or fifth right. I haven't really figured it all the way out yet because I haven't gotten down that lineage quite yet. But all signs say right now we're in some type of fourth or fifth right. Like we're under some type of German or Nazi control, which is really under a British control. That's where I'm going with that. Because who set up Germany or the Germania? Britannia, or Britain, or Great Britain, however you want to say it. There you go, find your rulers there. But then when you look at that, go back and look at who gave rights to Israel to build their own little land. This is where religion and all these things, they fall apart when you look into these things. And I hate to say that because there's going to be a lot of people, or if anybody really pays this any attention. I don't know that I even care. I mean, I do to some extent because I put it up here, but you know what I'm saying? Whether you take what I'm trying to give you out of it, that's all on you. I mean, I can't care past that. That's what I'm saying. So what I'm trying to give you is a clear understanding of exactly, like I said before, the animal that you're fighting. Your kids are not safe. I look at it and I tell my kids every now and then I get a feeling, and I'm beginning to get one where something is going to happen within the next 4 to 6 months. I'm beginning to get that feeling, like it just comes on real. And every time I say that, my kids look at me like I'm crazy. But I always turn around and be like, see, something else happened. And to me, that's the energy of the planet saying this shit's real. Like, they're doing this. This is not, by nature. These things are not by nature. And one of the reasons why I come to that conclusion, because, like I said, I'm an 80s child, right? I remember it used to rain, storm real hard for hours. It only do it for 4 or 5 minutes now. But you know what I'm saying? I'm looking at that as some type of weather manipulation. But then where do we see that show up? Do you think they don't see clouds? You're crazy. Look it up. All that information is here. Don't just say that's conspiracy this or conspiracy that, or this is this and this is that and shrug it off. Because how do you think you got to the point you're in? We kept shrugging off the details. Your parents dropped the ball. They didn't tell you who you really were. Out of fear. Maybe your parents didn't know, and their parents didn't tell them out of fear. I mean, I don't know how that lineage worked. That's yours. However, I do know we grew up thinking we were African, and we're not. I do know that my whole entire life has pretty much been a lie behind that. I mean, I don't understand how you could see it any other way. You grow up your whole life signing African American to a document and you're not African American. That's a lie. And I take that a lot more serious because that's something I had no knowledge of, or, I couldn't agree or disagree to. So what I'm saying to you is that at that very moment, I was a slave to indoctrination. Because it was in school, they told me I was an African. And then look at my leaders. They all told me I was an African. But I specifically remember my great grandmother telling me damn near, my whole childhood, I had Cherokee and Black Hawk in me. So what made me dismiss who I truly was? Who made me dismiss who I truly was? This is the conversation, man. It's here. Like, I understand people don't want to have this conversation, but it's needed. It's necessary. It's necessary. Constantine led you up to this point. And you got to remember that Constantine signed off on the Council of Nicaea. The Council of Nicaea wrote basically the functions to the Bible. The other man that wrote the Bible, King James. Like, I'm not taking a shot at religion, man. Keep your religion if that's what you want. But please take this information to heart. I gotta wrap this up. So at this point, I think the best thing I could say is a man that doesn't know who he is could never really reach his full potential. A boy that doesn't get to experience life first-handedly never really gets to reach his full potential. Life is a learning experience you do in action. That's what learning is. It's an action. When you're sitting at a table, you're being taught. You're being shown how to follow the herd. They're not helping you follow the herd to better the tribe, the community, the city. Shit, 3 houses from you. They're not giving you the tools to feed the hungry. They locking you up for it. How much can you continue to be a part of a system that is showing you they're not going to do nothing but deceive and lie to you to continue to take your youth from you? I mean, dysfunction only creates more dysfunction. And as we see in the hood, we really got an issue with trauma bonding. It was never really about Stockholm, because that ain't for you and I. It's in our DNA. So we're bred to bond out of trauma. We don't even know that's there. And that conversation needs to be had. And that's what made this video worth it. I thank you for tuning in. Remember, I'm your host, Darnell Henderson. Until then, back at you.